Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Let's welcome everybody out today to episode 322 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris.
And my name's Chrissy.
Hey, this episode of the podcast is proudly sponsored by our friends at Five Wives Vodka, our friends at the Salt Lake Barber Company, and our friends at the Melting Pot downtown. We're going to tell you more about these awesome local businesses and why you should be supporting them. We're going to tell you more about them later on in the podcast. But today on the podcast, Chrissy and I, we got the chance to sit down, have an awesome conversation with Michael McHenry. He's the president and head dude at Even Stevens.
And we love Even Stevens, if we have not mentioned it before.
People have actually pointed that out to me on social media. They're like, You love Even Stevens. You talk about him on the podcast.
Yeah.
This is our third person that we've had on the podcast from Even
Stevens. And this
Stevens.
is like not sponsored. Like, we just really, they don't pay us to love them.
No, we just love them. And we love, well, I mean, it's been a while since I've had any of the sandwiches, and he actually brought some of the sandwiches into the podcast recording. I didn't have the heart to tell him I'm on a diet. But,
I know, so I ate them for you.
Yeah, but I mean, they smelled delicious.
Ooh,
I had a really hard time staying away from them.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
We get to find out Michael McHenry, his story, how he got teamed up with Even Stevens, what he does for Even Stevens. I mean, we find out about a bunch of new locations that are opening up. He actually shares something on this episode that, if I remember correctly, he said has never been shared anywhere else before. Ooh. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We're going to play that conversation with him here in just a minute. But before we get into that conversation, this is something we've never done before, something we've never asked anybody to do. But I want to know, how did you find this podcast? Is this the first time you've listened to an episode of I Am Salt Lake? Have you been listening for 5 years, 2 years? Send us an email, hello@iamsaltlake.com, and tell us how you discovered us. Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, maybe a friend told you.
And what made you want to listen? Like, what was the catalyst to go, I'm going to download it?
Or what was the catalyst to say, I'm going to unsubscribe from these goofballs?
That's fair, too. Tell us you hate us. It's okay.
You know, and I posted this on Facebook this morning, Chrissy. I was listening to some really early episodes of I Am Salt Lake. And I mean, I'm not going to, I'll admit they were kind of rough.
But, you know, they have to be. Like, honestly, the ones that I have joined up until now, I've been here for about 100 episodes. I think I'm still getting there, you know? You have to keep practicing to get better.
Hey, I didn't go to school for this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, hey, I want to start a podcast, and I want to start a podcast highlighting all these awesome people in Salt Lake City. I think we're doing a great job here.
I think so, too.
322 episodes, 322 conversations. Anyway, send us an email. Again, that email address is hello@iamsaltlake.com. You can keep it simple and brief. Just say, hey, what's up, guys? I've been listening for a year. I found you through iTunes. Or, hey, guys, I found you through my friend Barney downtown. I don't know. However you found the podcast. Let's jump into that conversation, though, Chrissy. Let's jump into that conversation we had with Michael McHenry when he came over to our office to share his story. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Here's that conversation. Let's talk about your sandwiches here for a minute. And the only reason I want to bring this up...
Let's not talk about you. Let's talk about the food.
The only reason... I'm pretty sure I brought this up. We've had 2 other Even Stevens people on the podcast previously. When I discovered Even Stevens for the very first time, it's the one by 7-Eleven.
Sure,
what is that?
That's our first store.
The very first store.
South and second.
I thought I discovered heaven.
I've told this story a million times. When we started dating, he's like, you have to come with me to this place.
I thought
we would go there all the time.
I was convinced that you guys were going to I was like, they're going to shut down like every other Utah business seems to do, right?
Downtown Salt Lake City. I mean, it's this neighborhood's in our DNA. I mean, it's the reason why we do what we do. So that's our first location, 400 South.
What is that, like 4th West? It's right by Big Lots there.
It is 200 South
right next
and
to
4th East. My goodness, I was turned around a little bit. So we're on 2nd South and 4th East. Right next to 7-Eleven. And who would have thought, like, anchor tenant, next thing you know, these guys come in, we're ambitious. here's this young group of millennials that wants to change the world, and they're going to have a co-tenancy with 7-Eleven. And
it's actually kind of surprising. The first time I went there and I walked in, I did not expect it to be so impressive.
Well, you don't expect it when you walk in. You're like, whoa, all this rad art is on the walls. And then it's like, wait a minute. The sandwiches, all of them look good. I have never tried all of them. And you actually brought some of the food. I am going to jump into some of this food here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's delicious.
You got brownie points for bringing us food, by the way.
You can't be in the business. You can't be, an owner of a restaurant and someone who just, this is what we do. Food is our world. We're foodies, and creating an experience around food is what we do. So when you say you walk into the location, you're like, there's this wow factor. You come off the curb, you open up the door, and you're like, wow, local art, great, eclectic, one-of-a-kind space, people that are in there who absolutely love it and want to be a part of that experience. And that's neighborhood place building for us. And so we know that there's an experience that starts long before the sandwich. And for us, it's about bringing community together. That is really ultimately our deal.
Every location is so unique.
No two are the same.
You can still tell that they're related, but they all have their own personality.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. In fact, that was great, Chrissy, because you're right. No two even Stevens are the same, just like no two neighborhoods or no two people are the same. And so although we have a uniform style guide, although we are very much a regional and national brand at this point that was, birthed here right in Salt Lake City, we want to become the most localized national brand in the neighborhood. And so for us, we know that we have to capture the essence and culture of that neighborhood and celebrate it through our space. And so bringing community together, I like to reference it as we want to be known for having the biggest, most inviting and connective dining room table in the neighborhood.
Yeah. For people listening, your title, you're the president, the big guy, the big chief. Have you been with Even Stevens since day one, or talk about how you got involved with Even Stevens, how long you've been with Even Stevens?
Totally. Yeah. I'd love to share that. So, obviously, Even Stevens was the original brainchild of social entrepreneur Steve Down. He had the vision that we'd build a restaurant near the University of Utah, and for every sandwich we sell, you would donate a sandwich to the communities hungry. And that was it's
a great model.
That was it. There wasn't
unique.
A lot more to it than that, at least early on. And interestingly enough, at the time, I was the vice president of operations for another brand, and kind of peaking career. I wasn't looking around or out there, searching for really kind of the next greatest opportunity. I just, this is the business that I'm in. This is the business that I love. Academically, finance is my background, but my career has become about people. And it's interesting because the food business has provided such a unique opportunity to work with every walk of life. Of course, this experience right here. Food is, the food business created this experience.
It brings people together.
Oh, it's so connective. We reference this from time to time, and you might have heard this said, but we always say that, hey, food truly does connect everyone. And so I've got individuals that it's their first job. It might be their first job in the States. I've got everyone from high school to Ivy League graduates working on my team currently. And so you talk about bringing those types of experiences and those walks of life at the table just around bread, around truly breaking bread. It's just been such an infectious opportunity. And so Steve Down and I were actually connected by an executive business coach that we were sharing at the time. We had never met. And Steve was sharing, of course, with his coach, hey, I have this vision for a business, and I've got a small team already put together, and we're going to work on building this restaurant brand, and we have huge ambitions for it, but we don't have a restaurateur. We don't have that seasoned restaurant operator who's taken something from concept to scale. And that's my experience. I spent the last close to 15 years in the restaurant business. And it's been, in fact, I've been grateful and fortunate enough to work on some pretty kick-ass teams, gifted teams that and only from startup to enterprise. So from 1 or 2 locations to several locations. And so that's my wheelhouse, kind of my skill set. And so when this executive business coach kind of married the two of us up for a quick meeting, Steve and I immediately just synced up. His kind of his philosophy were for what he wanted to achieve, and my experiences really seemed like a good fit. But I have to tell you, it didn't happen right away.
The two of you didn't click right away.
Well, we clicked right away, but the idea, I'm coming from the restaurant business. Okay. I'm looking at what we do marginally, and
the restaurant business has a very, very low kind of margin anyway, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say low, but it's most definitely a marginal business.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're not looking at a business that's going to put 40, 50, 60%, even greater, like some retail or some, software companies or others that are out there. I mean, in the restaurant business, you got to really love it to be good at it. And you got to really love it to want to be in it. And so you are working on margins that are, 5, 6, 8, 10 to maybe 20 to 25%. And we pride ourselves on our ability to operate. And so, it is a more limited margin business. And so when Steve originally pitched the idea to me, I was like, oh, this guy's, kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I was a little like, hey, thriving in another brand, for lack of a better term, been crushing it for years, not comfortable, but grinding and climbing.
So you were more of a realist.
Yeah, totally. I think from the business, you understand, hey, this is what we do. And this guy's got an outside perspective. And so I was kind of like, hey, nice to meet you. Like the idea. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of started shaking me up a bit. I found myself about a week later thinking about it, like talking about it, going like, am I really thinking about this? Like, for every sandwich sold, you're going to donate a sandwich to the community's hungry. And that's when it just like pulled at my heartstrings and kind of woke me up. I had this bit of a reflection and of a sense where it was like, Michael, here you are. You've created a pretty successful career, a young progressive career. And you have an opportunity where a business that's been good to you, that you've created experiences in your local community. You've grown across the country in many ways. In fact, I spent all of my 20s living out of a suitcase. I mean, there was a 3-year period I didn't have a mailing address because all I did was live out of a suitcase in a hotel opening restaurants. And so it just gave me such a unique skill set or experience, right? Mm-hmm. And so I found this thing like tugging at me, this idea. So that was the first week, maybe 2, and 3 weeks into it, I just went, he had a great idea. Let me build a business plan, like a real business plan, a real pro forma, and go, can we put the numbers to this? Can we make this work? So I found myself like kind of in this pro bono type, opportunity unannounced to Steve, built a business plan.
You did it without telling him.
Without even telling him. Yeah, without even telling him. Built a business plan and built a pro forma and couldn't talk myself out of it on paper. I'm not going to say that I'm like this Excel genius, but I'm going to tell you, I built a pro forma that went like, wow, this model works. I called Steve. He happened to be in Scottsdale at the time. I flew in and met him in Scottsdale. We met at a restaurant and I walked in and he's kind of looking at me from the corner. And when I walked up to him, he just said at this point, kind of in his words, I just kind of had this shit-eating grin on my face. Yeah. And he goes, you're in, aren't you? And I said, I'm more than in. Like, let's really make this happen.
Yeah.
Let's really put ourselves in the driver's seat of driving true and sustained social change through food. And so the marry of like social entrepreneur and, kind of visionary in that space and restaurateur married together. And you've met a handful of our team.
Yeah.
And so that, interestingly enough, that was the week of Christmas, 2013. And the first shop opened June 24th of 14. And we opened our 20th location the middle of December in Seattle. So we're across 6 states now in 20 unique neighborhoods. And that's a bit of like the rundown. I mean, that's how this came about.
And I want to dig more, obviously, into all of that.
Can I ask a business question?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is so interesting to me because I understand the growing pains when a business goes from small to large. Yeah. And you seem to be an expert in that field.
Self-proclaimed, maybe.
Well, that's actually a really difficult thing for any business owner. You also had to deal with the new idea of creating a social impact while building it. So was it ever overwhelming?
I'd have to say, like, first, the team, this young team that was already underway.
Yeah.
Some of which I think you've met or that you know. Steve was able to bring a young millennial group together right near the time, maybe a few months before I got involved. Obviously, that was all in concept. And so, yes, there are days that can most definitely be overwhelming, but I will tell you that surrounding yourself with a gifted team and individuals that do bring on the ability to drive those initiatives. And so I think we're probably one of the only, if not the only, restaurant group that has such a focus on sociology, that, has hired sociology majors who really has developed a soul-standing department that does nothing but truly unpack the social opportunities that our neighborhoods are faced with, and how we can take food and really chomp not only the root of food insecurity, but how we can take food and provide it in such a way that allows our nonprofit partners to create the reallocation opportunity. And so, from a business side of it, days can be overwhelming, but I'll tell you, it's those days that I feel like the 1,000-pound gorilla's on my back, or the days that I'm like kind of crawling up my steps when I get home. What's beautiful about it is, as exhausting as it can be on all sides, when you realize that you're not just doing it for you, when you realize that you're really bettering your entire community through those efforts, it's this infinite fuel.
It's so
like the
rewarding.
gas is always in my tank, because there's one thing when you're kicking ass and taking names or taking punches and getting hit by waves all day long, and next day you're just walking in to unlock the door and turn on the lights, and you're like, gonna get my ass kicked again all day long for what a reasonable or manageable profit, where at Even Stevens it just continues to bear fruit well beyond the line out the door, or the long hours, or the not seeing your daughter or your wife or your partner for it seems like days at a time. When you realize that you just selflessly like let go of that, and realize that when you're truly a social impact business, you're doing it for a greater reason, and that's it's beyond being entrepreneurial or experience at that point. It's about like being fully committed. Like it's DNA deep.
Yeah.
So did you grow up here in Utah then?
I did.
Yeah.
I totally did. In fact, I grew up in Sandy, which is, here we are downtown Salt Lake City. And so I grew up about 15 miles south of here. Yeah. 15 miles or so south of downtown Salt Lake City. I went to Hillcrest High School for a little bit, and then I actually so I grew up here in Sandy, and then I went to Hillcrest, but I actually graduated from an alternative high school called Valley High.
Okay.
Which at times can surprise people. They're like,
that sounds like it's out of a movie.
They're like, hey, did you graduated from where? And I tell people like, that's the school I graduated from. And they always think I'm teasing, although I think it's like one of the best things that ever happened to me.
It was like a private school or something?
No, it was an alternative high school. It was an alternative program in Jordan School District. And it's actually still thriving in a new location today. But it's just a program where like kind of mainstream high school doesn't work for everyone. And so much smaller classes taught by, it's kind of like more private or memorial school focused. Like it's smaller classrooms with a teacher that's much more of like a small room professor.
Like a Montessori kind of?
Like really just wants to, like when they're teaching English, they're like all about it. When they teach art, they're like all about it. And so it was a very cool opportunity for me. And I had a little bit of an interesting like childhood, because, I'm shaped like a linebacker, I'm almost 6'3", like 240 pounds. And in high school, especially when you went to Hillcrest in the 90s, I was a big deal. They're like, you play football. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm a bowler, and bowling was my sport. It still is my sport.
Really?
Bowling's my sport.
What do you bowl? Like a
well, I used
300, right? Isn't that best?
Yeah, and I've bowled well over 20. 3 perfect games. I bowled competitively. It's what got me into business. So a bit of a curveball coming, right? No,
literally,
no pun intended.
That's a good one.
You said jokes. No. So bowling was my sport. In fact, I picked it up at the Ritz Classic here on State Street, the big bowling pin.
Yeah.
My father was on a Friday night bowling league, and I was a kid. So what do you do when you're a kid and you go to the bowling alley? In that day, it was like, even if you wanted to play arcade games, you had to or pinball, you had to be old enough to go into the bar. So I couldn't drink beer, and I couldn't play a lot of billiard or like pinball games and such. So there was 2 things to do: play pool or bowl. And I got pretty good at both of them. And so that's kind of like where I got my start in sort of business and entrepreneurship and like in leadership, in those that know me well know that I'm highly goal oriented, very focused on the day. And I think that bowling provided such a unique opportunity for that, because how can you be more goal oriented than step up onto the approach and knock all 10 down on the first roll? I mean, it's pretty simple. Life's pretty simple.
There's 10 trying to be better and
knock
better.
them all down. And so that was always the goal. So I've bowled, I would say, I don't have an exact count, but well over 25,000 games.
Wow.
Like
do you still get out and bowl?
I get out like periodically. In fact, I haven't bowled competitively since about 2005. So it's been a dozen years, pretty much the time that I've spent in the restaurant business.
Sure.
Because it became so demanding, but it became like my new love, my new art. But I did it competitively at a very high level. I went on an amateur tour for a while. In fact, one of my first kind of big winnings, big purse opportunities was the week that I turned 18. So I was in Vegas with a sponsor, not only from an equipment
and
sponsor,
you still
but from
couldn't
a
go in
personal
the bar?
sponsor. Still couldn't go in the bar, still not drinking, which also gave me a bit of a competitive advantage at a young age.
Because you weren't drunk, right? Most of the bowlers are probably drunk.
Yeah, I think that they're just, bowling. It's like,
hey, I've seen Kingpin here.
Kingpin's totally true. And bowling is very much that way. I mean, it's like beer and bowling. It's just like they go hand in hand. And I can't think of a bowling alley that you can go to where you can't buy beer. And why would you go to a bowling alley that you can't buy beer?
I thought that was the point of bowling,
that's
right?
You have to have a pitcher of beer at the table in between.
So wait. So they shut down Ritz. I guess is it Bondwood?
Bondwood's still there. Like that's a bowling alley. Like that is timeless. That's the timeless ways of what we do, of the sport in that way. And when I say what we do, to me, it's again, I appreciate the business models of these bowling centers and event centers that do all the bells and whistles, the games, the lights, all of that such. But I'm old school. Like, if you remember Fairmont, in fact, that is my wife Christy's. Her parents and grandparents are the ones that actually, I think they brought Fairmont to the Sugar House neighborhood in the 50s. And so they owned it and operated it for, I think, 40 years or over 40 years before they sold the property. So her grandfather got it rocking. We never met while we were bowling by any means, but it's Fairmont, it's Junction, it's Town and Country, it's Bondwood that today. And so that's, Chris, that's my start in business.
Sure.
While I was going to school and bowling, I got a unique opportunity to start my first retail shop. Right about at the age between 18 and 19 years old. I approached the owners of Fat Cats and said, hey, you've got a space. I want to lease it, and I want to put McHenry's Sports Shop in there. And so anything that had to do with bowling, equipment, bags, apparel, instruction, drilling, maintenance, anything that had to do with the game of bowling was really the only job I had really ever had, aside from, doing some excavation and such with my grandfather as a kid on the weekends. Bowling was my thing, whether I was teaching somebody how to bowl, hustling, the old boys at night after hours at the Ritz Classic, bowling for money long before it was okay to do so. I can tell you about some of the trouble I got in for that. So,
the hustling.
So hustling on the bowling games. And then it became my job. There was a time, in my first home, it's like I won tournaments to pay my mortgage. And so I got my first retail space there.
What's the most amount of money you ever won bowling in one time?
Like a week. So some of these tournaments were a week. The biggest purse I ever got total, this is like sweepers, side bets. The purse at that time I think was $18,000. And that was $18,000 over like a 4-day period. Now, it seems like a lot till you take your expenses, split with your sponsor,
all the money you lost probably prior to that.
But you break it all down. And so a good weekend like that, you might yield $7,000, $6,000 or $7,000. And when it's your 18th birthday,
that's $6,000
in a weekend.
Yeah.
And it's legit.
Do you ever get that itch to go bowling again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Do you want to go bowling after we're done?
I don't want to bowl with him. He's too good.
I get the itch because this is interesting. It's going back to a question that you brought up earlier. What is it? Does it become overwhelming? You sound like you've done this a lot, and I have. I've only been on teams from startup to the enterprise to restaurants from one to multi, and the drive for me is I get this interesting feeling, you know, when you hit a really good golf shot or you make the 3-pointer for the win or you strike on the 12th ball for a 300. There's just a certain like endorphin. It's like, it's nerves, excitement, it's pleasure. It's just something around victory. And what's interesting is I get that same kind of a feeling when our dining rooms are full. I get that same kind of a feeling when I meet a customer for the first time. It's like when I come home and a puppy's just like over the moon to see you. That's what it does to me. It's just, that's like this sort of infectious thing that came from the sport of bowling. So I most definitely gave it up for far too long. And as of late, about, let's see, I've gone bowling 2 or 3 Sundays out of the last like 2 months.
You need to start an Even Stevens bowling league is what you need to do.
That's a great idea.
Maybe we should get that started here on the podcast. Like those of you interested to join an Even Stevens team, come by our HQ and hit me up and let's get in some polyester and make this thing happen.
Gosh, it has to come with polyester shirts.
Yeah.
We need to actually take a fast break real quick and play a message here from our sponsors.
Sure.
But then when we come back, I want to jump right back. We kind of veered of Even Stevens here, but we got a lot more Even Stevens questions. So hang tight. We'll be right back. Hey, it's that time of the podcast where we take a few minutes and tell you about our sponsors. These are some great local businesses that are helping keep this podcast going. So please support them in everything that they have going on. Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by our friends at Five Wives Vodka. You know, when you go to Texas, you drink Tito's, but if you come to Salt Lake City, you drink Five Wives Vodka. They actually have 3 different flavors. A lot of people don't know about their 2 flavored vodkas, but Chrissy and I are going to tell you about them here. They have the original Five Wives Vodka. This is the one made from the Utah Mountain spring water. It's 100% distilled corn spirit. And it's gluten-free, which those of you that know me know I like the gluten-free stuff. The spring is hidden in beautiful Ogden Canyon. It's inaccessible by vehicle, so the water is hiked out 5 gallons at a time.
And Five Wives Sinful is a flavored vodka with a delicious cinnamon taste. It's not like other cinnamon products that give you that cinnamon candy taste. It's more like a morning cinnamon roll, and it only has 76 calories per ounce.
There's also the Five Wives Heavenly. This is a flavored vodka as well with a delicious vanilla taste. Heavenly's rich, buttery vanilla flavor comes through without coating your taste buds with sugar, and this results in more vanilla and less calories.
If you like a sweet vodka, I really highly recommend Heavenly.
All 3 flavors can be picked up at your local DABC, which is your local state liquor store. And you can actually head on over to the Five Wives Vodka website, fivewivesvodka.com, for more information about their products, recipes, all that good stuff is going to be on their website, fivewivesvodka.com. And many thanks to Five Wives Vodka for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by our friends at the Salt Lake Barber Company, which is actually where I go to get my hair cut. They're located right downtown in the central 9th District. Their address is 10 East, 800 South, which is on the corner of 8th and Main. They offer haircuts, beard trims, which I get my beard trim there. They have straight razor shaves, which I have yet to do. It is on my bucket list to get done.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Salt Lake Barber Company is a true community barbershop. They're focused on providing the best work environment possible and allowing barbers to always provide the highest quality experience while in the chair.
They take walk-ins if they're available, but they have guaranteed appointments you can book online at saltlakebarberco.com.
It's really easy. saltlakebarberco.com. Head on in there and you pick your time, you pick your date, you pick your barber, you pick what services you want to get, a haircut, a beard trim, whatever, and you schedule it and you're like, oh, this is what time I'm going to go get a haircut. No waiting. saltlakebarberco.com. Again, they offer haircuts, beard trims, straight razor shaves. They're located at 10 East, 800 South, right there in the central 9th District. Many thanks again to the Salt Lake Barber Company for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by our friends at the Melting Pot, which is locally owned and operated downtown on the corner of Market and Main, right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. This is an experience that I've never experienced before, Chrissy. A few years ago when I was single, when I was taking girls out on dates all the time and I was looking for a unique place, I wished I would have taken them to the Melting Pot. I mean, this was a unique experience. That's why I was so glad to experience my first time with you.
It was so nice. And honestly, we've been to some nice restaurants, but the thing about the Melting Pot is it's such an individual experience. You really feel like you have your own intimate setting.
Well, and I felt like I was making a meal for me. You
Yeah.
were making your meal how you wanted to. You cook your meats and all that right on your table there.
It's actually really fun.
The waiters there are experienced. They know what they're talking about. They knew, I mean, I mentioned that I was on the keto diet.
And he knew exactly
what to say, which I was impressed with.
And he knew which wines to tell me would pair good with the meats that I got, and he was totally spot on.
If you're ready for a night out downtown, maybe you're going out drinking, maybe you're going to a jazz game, maybe you're going to a concert at the Gallivan Center, it doesn't matter. I mean, the Melting Pot is a great for any activity, any date, any family experience. Like I said, they're on the corner of Market and Main. If you're riding the tracks, take the Gallivan Center drop to catch food and drink specials or your Melting Pot favorites. Again, many thanks to the Melting Pot for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Do you have a favorite sandwich?
So on the menu, I have a couple of favorite
So there's
sandwiches.
secrets. Wait.
There's a secret
Staff
menu?
hacks. Yeah, staff
I don't know.
hacks.
Did
I'm gonna
we
help you
have
out
we
on
asked
this
that
right now.
before?
No.
Okay. Well,
I didn't know this existed.
Well, sometimes you got to get the president on so that you like get the ins and outs.
Well, I know,
of
like,
the
you know,
secret
there's
menu.
places we don't need to name have their little secret menus,
totally.
right? And that makes it fun to go to.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
talk to us.
So on the menu, the Miami Vice, which is our take on the Cubano, like hands down, that's like my money go to. Like I absolutely love that sandwich. I don't eat it every day, but I want to. You know, it's most definitely quite filling, and I think it's not only in our neighborhood. And probably I sound a little biased here, but I think it's one of the best sandwiches, coast to coast at this point. I mean, it's like you can walk into an Even Stevens and grab a Miami Vice, some house seasoned kettle chips, and a beer, and get it in a kick-ass environment, served by somebody who absolutely loves it in 6 minutes or less for $10. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
it's just crazy. So on the menu, Miami Vice. Off the menu is actually what I brought you, which is the JP grilled cheese on sourdough.
Okay.
Add our turkey pot roast.
Ermagers. I should try it right now.
So that JP, you could go in and
So the
order.
jalapeno grilled cheese is on menu. I just switch it from the French bread to the sourdough.
Okay.
Which is like locally made stone ground sourdough. Chef Brandon and Stone Ground collaborated, came up with this great bread. And so the JP grilled cheese, add our turkey pot roast dip. It's just like at that point, it's like.
Do you want to bust into this,
It's like-
Chrissy? Do you want to
I'll
take
bust into it.
It's
How
so
about I
good.
try it while you guys talk?
Yeah, it's so good.
bust
Yeah.
I'm
into
going to
it.
be in the corner eating.
No,
Yeah,
well,
please do.
Take a bite and we could talk about it. I mean, we're here to talk about
Yeah,
food.
so
It's okay
you
to
asked
talk.
me. You asked me my favorite. I gave you two, one on menu and then one off menu. But my daily go-to, and remember, I'm blessed enough to have
Sure.
an Even Stevens in the parking lot of my office.
Sure.
And so we have an Even Stevens right next door to our HQ here in Sugar House, and so I eat the undergrad burrito every single day.
Now that's right. You're the one. You have the slide in the office because I came up there.
We have a
you had
twisty
like
slide in the center of the
you had an
floor.
open house for something. It
That's
was like
right.
introducing
Like welcome to the neighborhood,
new food item or something. I'll tell you what. Even Stevens. I mean, your whole staff. Everybody there is some of the nicest people. You know, Sarah, Samuel. I mean, everybody up there is really nice and friendly. I don't know how you did it. How did you get such amazing staff?
You know, it's interesting. Like I mentioned before, like we're blessed to have such a great team and a great staff, and a brand like this, I think, attracts certain talent.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate enough, I believe, to have some of the most gifted individuals in our communities working for us. So that's our do Gouda on shaved. That's our shaved New York steak. That one's pretty good. In fact, I should say it's really good. That's a go-to as well. That
Now
is
I
not
know
the
this
staff
isn't
hack.
the best radio, but that's what makes it fun, in my
Yeah.
opinion, right?
Yeah,
Because I want you come over here and talk. I mean, there's the eating podcast. Just don't chomp in the microphone, I guess. But I mean, describe it to us, Chrissy.
It's sweet and savory.
Yeah.
And so this is your hack, right?
This is not my hack. This is our do Gouda. This is
okay,
actually,
the do Gouda.
this is a staple on the menu. So this is.
I have to be honest, the Daguda is usually the one I get.
Is it? So that's it, right?
Yeah.
Usually,
So
usually I get the Reuben.
Yeah,
I'm the
as you
Reuben
should.
man.
The Reuben's just.
But so the hack, could somebody go in and order it and they will know how to make it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, just going to say like a staff hack to us is if you walk into any of our locations, you can walk up to the menu and you can, of course, order off of, I think, an amazing menu that's there and present for you. But you can also ask any of our experience creators right there on the spot, like, give me a staff hack. And when you say staff hack, they're going to know right off the cuff what you're talking about. And they're going to be proud. Some of them are even named after themselves. You know, if you go to downtown Salt Lake City, you can get the Dalton, which is like an underground burrito, and you add a bit of our jalapeno cream cheese and some of our turkey pot roast. Yeah, that's the goodie right there.
Which one is that, Chrissy?
That's the staff hack.
And this is the.
I might just name it after myself while we're talking about it, but that is the jalapeno grilled cheese with turkey pot roast in the middle of it on sourdough.
Wow, these are good looking sandwiches. Now. Okay,
Is it awesome and spicy?
It's
talk
so amazing.
about you were mentioning earlier how you give a sandwich for every sandwich buy.
Yeah.
Who are we working with? Like, who are you giving the sandwiches to here locally in the Salt Lake area?
Yeah, so we of course have let's see, right here in the valley, we have basically like 5 locations, kind of like valley end to valley end. Then we have Ogden, Logan, and St. George. I was counting Provo in that mix. And so every one of our locations, not only in Utah, but across the 6 states that we're doing business in, work with 4 nonprofits unique to the neighborhood where we're doing business. So every neighborhood that we come into, we go out and Sarah Day and our team on the cause team and Catherine Dupree, they go out and we court local nonprofits in the neighborhood and community that we feel like we share a like philosophy.
Okay.
We court them just like business partners. And so like here in downtown Salt Lake City in Sugar House, like I said, we have 80 nonprofits now, but we have the YWCA, which is the longest running women's shelter this side of the Mississippi. And they were actually our first nonprofit partner, and pretty amazing, the work that they do. Especially, I actually have had a mother that's have to utilize their resources from time to time when we were growing up, and it's amazing to be able to partner with an association like that, an organization that has made an impression on your life as a kid, and you start to see
You're giving back full circle.
It's huge. It's monstrous. In fact, our partnership with the YWCA facilitates somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 a month worth of food, and that goes a long way for a nonprofit partner, because what it's doing sustainably is the YWCA no longer has to take that 2 or 3 and sometimes even more than $3,000 a month. And they no longer have to allocate that on turkey or wheat bread or preserves or, peanut butter, tuna fish or, fresh vegetables. They now get to take those monies and allocate them towards their core services and products, like more shelter and professional services and health care. And when you realize that every time you come into an Even Stevens location, and not only are you rewarding your palate and your belly, but you're donating a sandwich right back to your neighborhood, you as a customer are making a direct investment back into the well-being and betterment of your community. And Even Stevens has provided and really created a concept where our customers are reminded and encouraged to come in and vote with their wallets, of course, and reward their palates and truly be able to flex their influence towards a more equitable experience in their neighborhood, and we rally behind that. So the YWCA, the Rescue Mission of Salt Lake, the Boys and Girls Club, the VOA, the Good Samaritan program. We just did the Sleep Out. I don't know if you saw that on Instagram or on some of our social bits last week.
I saw a couple pictures, but I didn't really. I had a lot of stuff going on, so I didn't have a chance to delve into it.
Sure.
What was that?
So we typically every new neighborhood that we go into, we really look to identify like a soup kitchen, rescue type mission, food pantry, and then a women's shelter. And we're really looking for youth programs as well. So we try to identify like a youth program, whether that's a shelter, a transitional program, Boys and Girls Club, or like Youth Futures in Ogden, which is just this incredible organization that is doing so much for our transitioning youth, especially in northern Utah. They actually have a second location that is close to opening in St. George. But a week ago, a handful of us, Sarah and a few other of the Even Stevens team members, got together and we put some goals in place. We all picked a goal. Some from $250 up to $1,000. And when you hit your goal, you got an opportunity to go to the sleep out. And so I took it, on myself, encouraged by my team, of course, to put $1,000 goal out there to raise awareness and resources again, for Youth Futures, and also to put them in a position where they could get more beds. And so sleeping bag and a piece of cardboard. You could layer up, have your hand warmers, do whatever, but no, like not a tent, not a motorhome, not a sleeping pad, but just get out your sleeping bag and layer up, of course, put out the cardboard and go for it. And that was March 3rd.
And right here in Salt Lake?
Right here in Salt Lake. And it was snowing.
Right when it was getting really cold?
It snowed for a part of it. So we were, I'm not going to say we roughed it, but we
I bet you wished it was today when it was nice.
It was gorgeous. But I'll tell you that to associate yourself with what's really going on, Chrissy, you don't have to turn on the news to see the social opportunities that our neighborhoods are being faced with, or you have to look outside of your own community and state.
Yeah.
It's happening. Like right in your own neighborhood. These opportunities are there and present. So it is quite grounding. And I'll tell you that I don't know that I'm signing up to sleep outside once a week or once a month forever, but to really associate yourself with the work, with the end results of why we do what we do. It's grounding for sure.
Where's Even Stevens? Like, are you working on any opening right now, or is everything open?
No, we totally are. Yeah.
Anything you can share, or are they all top secret?
No. I mean, Even Stevens is about celebration. We love to come into any new neighborhood where we are, of course, ambitious, I should say, to achieve our goals and aspirations as a business, but get directly involved in achieving the goals and the well-being of our neighborhood at the exact same time. So we love telling people where we're coming. So in fact, we have four new locations under some phase of development currently. So another kind of big development year in front of us. We opened 11 new stores last year. Wow. So
that is a lot.
11, almost one a month. Crazy.
And you're having to travel.
Totally. Yeah. These are all new neighborhoods. These are all new experiences. And it was a lot of work, but again, it's like we shared before, like when you're doing this type of work where you're really marrying compassion and action and hustle, when you're out there and your work's making a difference, it's a big deal. So four locations underway. We've got a downtown Denver location in the Rhino, right off of Larimer in the Rhino Arts District, Even Stevens is always looking for that high sense of community, like where's the sparks, like what resurgence is taking place, what community builders are coming together. So we love just being a part of that. So we have a location in downtown Denver, and we have a second location in Tucson underway, which is at Tucson, the Yard. So an old lumber yard that we're a part of. Great little tastemaker neighborhood taking place right now. And then we're taking on our first California
We're in
location.
California.
In fact, I think it's the first time I've shared it in like this big of a public setting.
Wow.
And so San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, San Diego is like, we're stoked.
Yeah.
And we're bringing a new element to the Even Stevens experience. It's the first time we've had a walk-up window. So we're like beach community. Why wouldn't we?
Walk-up window?
It's a walk-up window. So you can walk up to Even Stevens, check out the jams, the music playing on the outside. Very cool aesthetic. It's freestanding right in the North Park neighborhood. It's great, like incredible location. Totally like it was... I think you've got to be doing this kind of work to get a location like that, especially when you're like from Salt Lake City and you're moving into California. It's like sometimes, they look at outside brands, and a lot of communities do. Like opening in Seattle was not easy.
Right.
Like identifying property in Portland is just like, they don't want anybody but people from Portland going there. But then they
really
meet Even Stevens and they realize the work behind Even Stevens, and not just the social impact side, but everything that we put into our craft. Like, this is no joke food. Like, this is no like kind of gimmick. I mean, this is truly like bottoms up, chef made craft. I mean, we have a lot of kind of phrases, but we always say like the difference between craft and commodity is craft that is made by people that truly love it. Like we hope that you taste a little love when you eat our sandwiches. And so we get some respect for the culinary side of it. So not just on the social impact side, but they really understand that we take food seriously.
You take it very seriously. I mean, these are actually, in my opinion, super gourmet. Because you can say sandwich shop, that could mean a million things, right? These are the most impressive gourmet sandwiches, and they're not that expensive.
Well, and that's what
you're helping people.
Yeah, how are you? That's what I don't understand. The margins of how you give back to the community while providing top quality food. Because if I understand correctly, every Even Stevens, you work with like local food, right? So you're getting it from maybe local bread makers or whatever. You know, I don't know what.
Local is as much as possible.
As much as possible, which tends to cost a little more money too in that way. You know, you're not getting it just off the line at Costco or something like that, I guess. Maybe some of the stuff, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, it blows me out of the water how you can do it.
Yeah. In fact, Chef Brandon, as you know, he's been on before.
Yeah, great guy.
He is an incredible artisan chef. Like, he is so incredible with bread. I'm sure you probably caught some of his passions about bread. And sometimes people are go like, why don't you guys make your own bread? Like, you've got You've got Chef Brandon. And yeah, it's a great question. And I'll tell you, it's right at the foundation of Even Stevens. Like, we go into a new community and we identify a local bakery, and chef and the baker collaborate. Yeah. And when they collaborate and agree to a spec, then our businesses grow together.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Even Stevens, that's what it's about. Like, not just coming in because we have the resources, the big vision, or we want to be, you know, the most successful restaurant in the neighborhood. Now, I will say confidently, I think we're redefining sandwich shop.
Oh,
I think we're
absolutely.
redefining what it means to like break bread, you know, in a sandwich shop across the country. But it's always been about coming in and identifying those local artisans, craft makers, you know, partners, whether you're roasting coffee, you're brewing beer, you're baking cookies, you're baking bread, you're growing vegetables. We want to know you. Mm-hmm. We want to know you, and we want to build a relationship with you. And interestingly enough, Chris, I would say that I think marginally it costs a little more money.
Yeah.
But the abundance that it brings to everyone, so far the fruits have just followed it.
What's the feedback when you're going into another state and they find out you're from Utah? I mean, Utah, we still kind of have a goofy name for ourselves.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, I'm curious. I mean, obviously we're a Salt Lake City podcast here, Utah
sure.
podcast. But I'm just curious.
But people
you
think
know,
we're silly
I'm
a little
curious,
bit.
especially since I mean you're dealing with beer and all of that stuff.
So several years ago, like long before Even Stevens, it was like I felt like, because again I've spent my career opening restaurants, and we would get like kind of just piled in with New Mexico, and it was kind of interesting to kind of think like, when they think of Utah, they think of the Four Corners, or they're like, you know, hey, are you Mormon? How many wives does your dad have? You know, that kind of stuff.
That's all that's ever said.
And then when I'm like, none, and they're like, what? No, you know, my mom and dad divorced years ago, but you know, now it's different. And I'll tell you that one of the biggest opportunities we have is that we want to grow into these, you know, these neighborhoods with a high sense of community that, you know, being a brand that's laser focused on millennials, we're looking for those young kind of progressive demographics that, you know, these are young professionals that are starting their careers. They're in college, they're graduating college. They're just like now starting to like really go like, what am I going to do to change the world? And we're attracted to those neighborhoods, and they're tough to get into in Portland, or, you know, Pioneer Square in Seattle, or the Rhino in Denver, or, you know, just the list goes on. And so I'll tell you that even that Utah doesn't get as much credit as it should. I think we're still a bit of a diamond in the rough.
We're getting out there.
I think we're still a little bit of a diamond in the rough, but I will tell you that we're getting a lot of street credit now.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before, like word on the street is, you know, Utah is talented. Utah is up and coming. Of course, we're known from the tech side. We're known for the family side, the recreation, but now we're starting to become known for, you know, great art, great retail, great progression in food.
Oh, we
the
have
food
the best
scene
food.
here is incredible.
I mean, it really is. And I don't say it biasly because I'm in the industry. I mean, this is the industry of opportunity, and Utah has got amazing. In fact, I was going to say kick ass again. For some reason, that's
man.
my term.
Kick ass. It's okay to say.
The food industry and food scene in Utah is kick ass. There's some amazing culinarians.
Yeah. I actually know people who have moved to Utah, chosen to move here because the food scene is so great and it's so diverse.
Yeah, it's a great place to launch. Like it's just a good captive audience. You're just over 3 million people. This is a good place to build big relationships and a customer base and loyalty around what you're doing.
What kind of advice would you give somebody who wanted to go into business for themselves? Just, it doesn't necessarily need to even be food, just business in general. What kind of advice would you give?
I mean, there's so much advice I'd want to give, but if I really was just kind of lay it out on the line right now, if you really want to get into entrepreneurship, if you really want to get out there and start your own business, I think you've just got to be like absolute in your vision. Like you've got to be absolute. And I think you've just got to check the boxes and know that you got to be unwavering in your pursuit and be prepared to just eat shit for a while. Like be prepared to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Because, and again, kick ass kicked, however that works. I got to tell you, you just got to enjoy the grind. You got to enjoy the grind. You got to enjoy the climb, because for me, no matter what phase of business I've been in, from startup idea on the back of a napkin to opening restaurants to closing restaurants to winning tournaments to losing tournaments to building ideas that work and don't work. And, I oftentimes say for, every 25 campaigns you run, you might find one that works. And at times you might come up with 25 and 15 of them work, and you might come up with 25 and they don't. So I think it's being absolute in what you're looking to change, what you're looking to improve. I would say today more than ever, you just have to have the sensory of who are you taking with you, because it's not a selfish game anymore. Success is a community effort. So just be absolute in that vision, be unwavering in your pursuit, and learn to enjoy the grind.
I love that. Have you ever read the book, The Spark and the Grind?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read The Spark and the Grind. Should I?
I've never even heard you talk about this.
Really? It's Sparking. Well, okay. Disclaimer, I haven't read it yet, but we talk about it a lot at work. But I love that you're saying enjoy the grind, because that's the part that people never enjoy. That's the part
they want to be at the top.
It's exhausting, right? The spark is the fun part, but the grind is the important part.
You got to earn it.
Yeah.
Like it makes everything taste better.
You got to pay your dues.
It's just everything tastes better. Again, not trying to go too deep, but I grew up with a lot of choices. We all do, right? We all have a choice, but I didn't grow up with a lot of kind of resources around me. Like I didn't grow up with it in a family with a bunch of money. In fact, I'm not taking away. I love my parents, but neither of my parents graduated high school. Without trying to get like a little too emotional here, like at times I have to remind myself, like I wasn't supposed to be here. If I just chose for society to like come up with my journey, if society was like, hey, you should be in this box in this way because that's what, the life around you.
That's what your background is. That's
like, and I'm like, you know what? Screw that. Like disrupt that. Like fuck those norms.
Yeah.
Like let's go for, what you're capable of. And so when you go out there, it's grinding, but to me, it's like seeking potential. I have a quote that I live by that's for me with others, and championing others to their full potential is my thing. And what's interesting about helping champion others to their full potential is that you seek your potential in that grind.
I have seen your, I want to say it's in your office. It's a list of something.
Commandments or something.
Our house rules.
Like
House rules. Yeah.
And I took a picture of it because it was so cool how your goal really is for everyone to be the best version of themselves.
That's all you can be, man.
Hell yes.
That's all you can be.
Too many companies, too many organizations want people to fit into their mold, into their cloth. And we're going, no, fully disrupted. Like we celebrate individualism. We got to have some guardrails, right? We're in a business, honestly, that can kill people. Right. Just think about that. I mean, it's the food business. Like there's, if you don't take it seriously, people are taking that food, putting it in their body immediately. Think about what the kind of the pre-op that you go through in an operating room, and think about all of the sanitation, reversed air, everything goes on. And that's just to like cut you open or to stitch you up. Like you walk right in our restaurants, grab our food, it goes right in your body. There's a sacred duty that follows that. And so,
I like how you bring out the actual best in people, because we know so many of the people who work for you, and they're so impressive because you allow them to take their personal spark and bring it. into the business.
We don't want you to walk into an Even Stevens experience or meet one of our team members and everything is like please and thank you and my pleasure. Right. And not the robotically and everyone has to tuck in their shirt, they're clean shaven, got their name tag on and a visor. We're not about that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you what we are about is alignment in our philosophy, alignment in our goals and our infinite reason. And so we live by those house rules that allow us to truly be who you is, that allow you and remind you that we all wear the same jersey and we're out there for the same goal. And so you walk into an Even Stevens location, our goal isn't to count how many times we can say thank you or how many times we can say my pleasure or how many times we can say, all of the sort of robotic terms. Our goal is that every time you walk in, that we create an experience that you're willing and that you've been influenced by, that when you leave, you're an advocate, that when you leave, we gain your influence and that you go and share like, wow, that craft, that surprised me. Wow, that environment kind of blew my mind. Or I was excited to see that mural by Trent Call.
Yeah.
Or I was excited to high five, Sarah Day in the dining room. Or I got to meet what you would think is a general manager in a location, but at Even Stevens, they're community ambassadors. I got to meet like an extension of the neighborhood. And it just so happens that they're sort of catalysts for bringing community together as sandwiches. And so we have to have some house rules in place to celebrate individualism. And we're not out there at Even Stevens as talented as the chef is and as talented as Sarah and Sam and Aislinn and the list goes on and on. Like I mentioned before, I mean, Even Stevens, 3.5 years ago, there was less than 20 of us total.
Wow.
Like total.
Wow.
And how many is there now? Probably?
Over 600.
Oh my gosh.
Over 600. But we're not out there just hiring like career cooks and servers and those that have spent their lives in the industry. We're out there identifying individuals that want to make a difference in their neighborhood, that like really want to give back and really want to contribute. And then we teach them how to put two slices of bread together. And I think that's what you feel when you go to an Even Stevens. And I could bring out some of the business metrics. You've brought up a few of the business questions. And, if you take the average fast casual restaurant, which we are, across the country, they have a turnover greater than 66%. I think actually the 2017 metric is like 72% turnover.
Wow. I was actually talking to a restaurateur today who owns a food truck, and he said it's really difficult in the food industry because as soon as you give an employee a paycheck, they disappear for a week. Yeah.
So it's tough. They say that like one of the biggest like ongoing challenges in the industry is employee turnover. And what's interesting is probably one of the biggest like ongoing contributors to the success of Even Stevens is our employee retention. I said that like the average fast casual turns over, close to, if not more than 70% of its staff. And if let's just take that over a 6-month period and the average team is a team of 30, right? That would be over 20 individuals being turned over every 6 months in an operation. That's huge.
Yeah.
There's the cost associated with that. Even Stevens turns over less than 6 during that same period. And so we hire different and we hire to our mission and we train our vision, where most are like hire to your vision, right? Come in, be the fastest line cook, be the biggest personality.
It becomes a career
server.
for people that you hire.
Totally. It's all about runway for us. Like we ask more future questions in our interviews than we do about the actual, position that you're hiring for today. We have kind of a motto in house with our operations team, which is like, are you hiring for today? Or are you hiring for a year from today? And it's all about hiring from who we plan to be a year from today, not on what our needs are today and yesterday.
Let's talk Salt Lake City as we wrap this podcast up. I love Salt Lake.
As you should.
So if somebody was visiting, I asked this, these are a couple generic questions we ask on every episode. If somebody was visiting Salt Lake City for the weekend, they've never been here, what would Michael say? Go check this out. Go check this building area. Go on this hike. What would you say?
Man, I have so much that I want to share. Of course, you got to get in there for the Miami Vice, right? So
well, of course, you got to come to Even Stevens.
Obviously.
You absolutely have to hit up an Even Stevens. And you've really got to come downtown and just walk the sidewalk because Salt Lake City is one of the cleanest, most friendliest, communities in the country.
Yeah.
And I think you have to take that on. You've got to walk down a sidewalk where everybody smiles and waves or catches the door for you, waits for you across the street, or a car that stops at a crosswalk and actually patiently like waves you across the front. So I always say, like, come down and just take a moment and take on the essence of our community and see that we really are what people say we are. We really rock that. I think that you also have to take the unique opportunity. I think we undersell it. We've heard so much about Pacific Coast Highway, in Southern California, and you're between Santa Monica and Malibu, and you've got to check out the ocean on PCH. I think you've got to really get in your car, get in an Uber, get on a bicycle, and take on Wasatch, and just point your face east and just take on the massive beauty of the Wasatch Mountains, because to me, that's our PCH.
There's nothing
that's
like
our
it.
coast. It's it's our beach. It's our beach full of granite and pine cones and trees and the forage. It's incredible. And so I just skip the damn sidewalk, get on the dirt and enjoy it. And so I just, skip downtown, high five, take on the essence of it, and then get to this place where I believe that we really, we get it. Like, I think we get it from our mountains. We get it from our air. We get it from our surroundings, and just become grounded with what, Utah has to offer, because our recreation truly is.
It's amazing.
It's so soul connecting. And
it really is.
I mean, I'm hiking right now, even in the current weather. You can catch me in Bell Canyon, probably to the lower lake, which is just right there at the base of Little Cottonwood Canyon. You can catch me there maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm just always hitting those trails. So taking advantage of that. And, I got a couple of spots I really love. If you're a sneakerhead, you got to check out Feist. If you need an incredible beer, I think we could probably kind of all go, to the spots that we really love. But my favorite Pilsner in the state is Bohemian there in Midvale. I think it's this like hidden gem that just is
right on like 7200 South.
7200 South and just east of state.
Yeah.
And so there's great breweries. There's a great experience. And then, get your ass to Park City so that you can see that we really are the culinarians that we believe that we are, and we really are changing the game, because there's just the progress of what we do is just it's so shining in communities like that.
Anything else you want to ask him before we let him go here, Chrissy? I've had a heck of a conversation
this is
with you on
fantastic.
the podcast.
Is there just one piece of advice that you would leave with our listeners?
I would say, especially those that are here in Salt Lake City, just thank you so much for believing in what we do at Even Stevens. It's just, it's really built a catalyst or a confidence in us to really drive the trajectory of this brand. And, Salt Lake City and Utah's in our DNA. We wouldn't be shit without you.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you. And I'm just humbled when I pull into a restaurant and I see people lining up to vote for what we do. I'm humbled by the opportunity to come in and just share what this incredible vision and this brand has done for myself, for my family, for so many others. I love hearing that, when you first got together, you got to come check out this place. Like, those stories never get old. And so if I have one thing to just share and close, is I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to do what I love every day, to get people rallied behind this vision and to give back to this great state.
I love it. And then Even Stevens' website address is just evenstevens.com.
Yeah, evenstevens.com. Check out all the good stuff that we're doing. We've got a great online, platform, so you can go through our whole menu. You can check out our reviews. You can place an order from there. You can buy a sandwich. You can buy one of our hoodies. You can get a patch of, a batch of stickers, so you can sticker slap your own neighborhoods.
And you guys are one of the few restaurants whose gear and merch I actually want to buy.
Yes.
And
it's great.
Obviously, you're in a lot of locations, so I won't make you run down the list. All the addresses and everything will be on the website.
All on the website.
Facebook, all that. I'll put that at iamsaltlake.com.
Great.
With this episode. And that's it. I've had a heck of a conversation. I always tell people, let's catch up down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
Thank you so much. All right. Many thanks again to Michael McHenry for coming on this episode. What a great conversation. I had no idea. I mean, most of the stuff you shared, I had no idea, Chris.
I did not expect bowling.
Oh, gosh.
Didn't see it coming.
I did not see that coming. I did not see, all the locations that they're opening up. I don't know how this guy still has a smile on his face. I'm sure.
No. How is he so excited and happy?
Or
I'd
that
be
he had the
exhausted.
time to come and do this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank him right now. I've told him thank you before, and I'm sure he's listening back to this right now. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming and doing this podcast. All of the links, everything for Even Stevens, they're going to be on the IamSaltLake.com website, IamSaltLake.com/322 for episode 322. Head on over there. It's got some links up there. This is a really easy link to share this episode on social media. Share it with your family and friends. Post it up on Facebook. Say, hey, check out this awesome podcast that I listen to. It's people like you that share this podcast with your family and friends that are going to help make this podcast grow. So anyway, hey, I mentioned this in our Facebook community, our Facebook group that we have for the listeners. You can find that by going to IamSaltLake.com/group. But I mentioned that I reactivated our voicemail line. I opened it up. It's a dedicated voicemail line for I Am Salt Lake. You'll call it up. Nobody will ever pick it up. But I figured, you know what, let's open it up. This will allow listeners to give us a call if they have any feedback that they want to give about any of the interviews. If they just want to say hello.
Yeah, or tell us about something cool that you've discovered in Salt Lake.
Yeah, maybe
we want to know about.
Favorite local eating places, what you would recommend if somebody was coming to Salt Lake for the first time, whatever. That number is 385-202-5926. Give us a call. I did try to get an 801 area code number, so don't give me a hard time for having a 385 number. Google Voice did not have any more 801 numbers, so I had to set up a 385 number. That's 385-202-5926. That voicemail box better get full, you guys. Anyway, hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Many thanks again to our sponsors for this episode, Five Wives Vodka, where you can find at your local state liquor store, the Salt Lake Barber Company. Book your haircut at saltlakebarberco.com. In the Melting Pot downtown on the corner of Market and Main.
Take a hot date there.
Yeah. Seriously, take a really hot date there. Hey, if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or two of this podcast, get in touch. Again, our email address is hello@iamsaltlake.com. You guys have a great week. Get out and enjoy the city. Support local, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Good night, Grammy.